Hey everyone, here we are, another edition of Huddle Up with Howard. He's Howard Richards. I'm Mike Claiborne, and we have a lot to talk about today. I'll start today about Saturday, Missouri and Alabama, which was a really entertaining game for a lot of reasons. Missouri comes up a little short. A lot of things that stood out, and you and I have talked about it. I thought the game was decided in the first quarter. I thought the penalties that Missouri incurred really was a difference maker. It really opened up the door for Alabama. It reminded Alabama that they could play with Missouri because they were on the ropes early. And the penalties, I thought, cost them. Overall, though, I like what I saw in Missouri, and we talked about this before. I want to see how much they narrow the gap.
Yeah.
And I thought they made significant improvement as far as making themselves relevant, not just against Alabama, but in the SEC.
Well, it just shows we are probably brothers from another mother, because I've been using that term about the talent gap. It is certainly shrunken. And I think if you're a Missouri fan, you should at least be delighted to know that, minus Mizzou beating itself, which, there's times in the past that's happened.
Oh, yeah.
If you figure out a way to play more disciplined football, the silly penalties, you'll win a bunch of games like that. But to be, even at home, to be in a position late in the fourth quarter, less than 2 minutes, where you've got a shot to win this game, other than winning it, that's all you can hope for. Because this game, in some ways, in some years, this could have been over. It was over well before the fourth quarter arrived.
It's funny you bring it up in that manner, because you and I have both seen a number of those games over the years, and you just say, well, we just want to hang in there with them. We want to show up.
Keep it close.
Yeah, keep it close. Make sure the team doesn't cover. But I saw a different page turn, and I'm looking forward to how they rebound, because they have Auburn this week. Now, Auburn is a team that doesn't have a problem. They have a problem scoring, but they're still Auburn. They're still a SEC opponent.
And Mizzou went to Auburn 2 years ago, lost a tough one. Nate Pete fumbled the ball forward, went out of the end zone for a touchback. They also missed a chip shot of a field goal. And playing on the road, you have to truly, truly be so cognizant of the mistakes, because they will kill you.
And, I'll touch on that. You better be good on special teams on the road, because we're seeing that become more and more prevalent. And you got to make those chip shots. You better make sure you cover on punts. And I see too many teams that give up that one play that's a difference maker. And I think Missouri's got to tighten that up.
No doubt. Along with in third down situations, they were 1 for 10 on third down, which was abysmal. But also, I think, the running game. Mizzou only had 28 rushes in the entire game. Bo Perbula ends up leading.
That's not good when
the
you're
leading rusher in college football. He ends up leading in rushing. That's not a good formula. And I said before, run Ahmad Hardy until his tongue falls out. And I just think,
and the other guys tongue
do that, and Jamal Roberts as well. And Eli said it on the attempted fake punt. So we snapped to one of the best running backs in the country. So right then and there, that should tell you we've got to use the horses that we have to our advantage.
Let me run this by you. Football to me is a game of patience.
Yes.
Where you don't win it on one play. You can lose it when you get away from doing certain things. How disciplined does Missouri have to be offensively? And you mentioned running the ball, because it's a series of plays that really ends up winning ball games for you. So how much more patient do they have to be in staying with the game plan?
Mentally tough. They have to be mentally patient, have to be better in that area. And, and I love going back to my days with Dallas, playing for one of the most revered coaches who's ever done it, Tom Landry. And he would say, there's going to be times, and as a running team, when you're running the ball, that defense is going to stop you. You should not allow that to deter what your offensive game plan is if you're a running team. Now, if you're down 4 touchdowns in the first quarter, that's one thing. That wasn't the situation with Missouri on Saturday. you keep running it and wearing them down. Hey, what are you doing? You're wearing the defense down, but you're also controlling the time of possession. You're controlling the clock by running it, thereby minimizing the possessions that your other team, a good offensive team like Alabama, you minimize those possessions. They can't score.
Now they play
much.
desperate football.
Yeah. So run the ball. Eventually, those big plays with the ability of Jamal Roberts and Ahmad Hardy, you're going to pop some big plays. And that's what you have to do. And I'm not saying they don't have capable weapons on the outside. However, your bread and butter is running the ball. And that's how you've beaten teams consistently in the past.
And the other thing that comes with the run is, we were talking about this earlier, every time you run the ball, the safeties, the linebackers take one more step closer to the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden the passing game is open. The slot guy is running behind the linebackers. The safety is out of position. The cornerbacks are peeking inside compared to paying attention to the receiver. There's so many things that go on once you establish the run game.
No doubt. And especially getting the ball into the tight end's hands, because collegiate defenses, for whatever reason, seem to not care that big target is on the field. So many times a tight end will release, not just on Missouri's team, but on other teams. They just free release down the field, and it's not until they get the ball in their hand that defenses tend to want to pay attention to them.
You know, I think it's college game is copycatting what we see in the NFL. And I think the presence of a guy, when you look at what Kansas City's been able to do with their tight end and how successful they've been, they do those little drags across the middle, or he just stops and plants. And now you're seeing more teams doing that. Missouri has a very good tight end right now, and they have more on the way. But it's amazing how these two levels of football are starting to mirror each other more and more.
I agree. And the collegiate talent is your NFL talent.
Yeah.
A guy like Brett Norfleet, who's 6'6", 6'7", 250 plus pounds, with really good speed, good hands. He's a good athlete. As you know, he was a prospective baseball pitcher. So the guy knows, and he's starting to learn the tight end position. Upside is like through the roof. But I think you want to get him those opportunities so that he can see it more. Just simple routes, like we call the box out routes. You just run a seam or a little dig route over the middle and put the defenders on your back, turn and face the quarterback. With your size, that defender's got to come through you.
If nothing else, you're going to draw a pass interference.
Exactly. With that big wingspan and just reeling that, if the ball's thrown properly, not up high, but here or below, I think you're going to give defenses headaches throughout the game. And then as the safeties start creeping up, boom, you take your shots downfield.
So you want to go to the big board here and show us what you're talking about here?
Of course. Why not? Let's see if we can get our crack equipment to sort of work here. Here we go. Oh, look at that. It's already set up for us, man. That's crazy.
Okay, Hank Stram, take it away.
Hank Stram. So you'll have situations where if you run off your receivers, meaning take off down the field, right? And you've got backs either flaring one way or the other out of the backfield as an outlet for the quarterback. Ball snapped, the tight ends, whether it's the tight end on the line or the H-back here, depending on the play that's called, these linebackers are looking in the backfield trying to figure out what the action is. So if he goes this way, he's probably going to take him. But what often happens is this guy will sort of delay release, like he's going to block or just hold there if no one even crosses his face. And he can just kind of sit right here. Or you sit, you come across as though you're going to sit here and then go straight up the seam. And I think if your quarterback, especially if you're utilizing bootleg action, he has the ability to hold the defense because they're looking at the quarterback, whether it's RPO or whatever the case may be, and you got shots down the field because he's wide open. Now, these safeties,
they have to make a decision.
They've got to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to help here, going to help here, depending on what's here. Or sometimes you'll bring a blitzer. If you bring a blitzer, this guy's
He's
going
got
to
to
go
come
here.
up, and now you're really wide open.
Exactly. He's got to pick him up in man-to-man defense if this guy blitzes. So reading what defenses are trying to do to you, and I would go back and look at where you on plays that you failed, like against either Alabama or Kansas or whomever, because you know that you're going to see these plays again. Defenses are copycats, right?
Yeah.
They'll see if this is going to work, offenses too. If this worked against this team, we need to figure out how to do that, because they ran that play several times and we shut it down over and over again. You're not inventing the wheel. You're just making that wheel
putting another spoke in it.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk. You, Coach Richards over here. Let's talk about coaches. Coaching right now, I think, is harder ever to do. Not just the players, but dealing with the other noise. And we saw a couple of guys go down this week. The biggest name is James Franklin, and when you look at his body of work, pretty impressive. But then when you go to page 2 and you see that the games that are meaningful against ranked teams, games at home, he just didn't get it done.
Well, it's true. And it's unfortunate because I think the guy's a really good coach. There are others that will dispute that. But, to take a program like Vanderbilt, and before he departed Vanderbilt,
he's helped put Vanderbilt on the map.
Yeah, I think he won 9 games the year that and Vanderbilt beat Missouri, I think, in a 9-3 or 96 game or something like that. But that's what propelled him to get to that level at Penn State. My concern is that some coaches, I'm not sure exactly how long Franklin had been there, but
12 years.
12 years. In many cases, and irrespective of Franklin, coaches aren't given either enough time to really develop their program, or as administrators, those that made the hires, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. You got to look at your evaluation and hiring process, because if you don't have confidence in what this guy's done, and chances are what he's doing is he's already laid that out for you. But if you don't have patience, then you need to look at yourselves for how you are evaluating the talent that you decide to hire. So it kind of works both ways. We know that, as a coach, you're expected to do, A, B, or C. If you don't, then, we see what happens. However, make it easy, save a little face, really evaluate your own evaluation process as to the talent that you're hiring.
Well, and that's a good point you make, because I think, obviously the players have a lot to do with this, but your assistant coaches and the work you give them to do, because coaches, that's the one element that has changed a lot, because you're more of a CEO compared to a guy who's blowing a whistle. And you may pay attention to your offense and making sure a play you insert that week is going to work. But overall, the meetings and the preparation is done by your assistants, and you better make sure you have good assistants. And the question there is, if you're a really good program, your assistants are going to get gobbled up. They're going to get their own programs, or they're going to move and be a coordinator somewhere else. So you have to be able to know who out there can step in and share the same philosophy you have in order to be successful.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, it's just like depth on your from a player standpoint.
Yeah.
That next man up has got to be able to give you the same production as the starter that went down. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it comes with the job.
Yeah.
This is what you must do.
So those quality assistant guys, those film guys, they're auditioning, whether they know it or not, to be able to step up and replace somebody down the road.
They know it. In fact, Mizzou has an offensive line quality control assistant, whatever you want to call him. His name's Jack Abernathy, I believe. And I think this guy's going to be a tremendous coach. Just watching him in practice and how he addresses players, always talking about the finer points. Plus, he looks like he played offensive line too.
That helps.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does help. You got to look the part also.
Yeah, exactly.
And
no, you can't walk around looking like Abe Gibber.
No, but
well, I know I lost a lot of you. Just Google them and you know what I'm talking about.
But those are important points. Those guys aren't just there to fulfill that role of evaluating film and all that stuff. if there's an issue with a coach that goes down, or coaches get fired, they get sick, that next man up has got to be ready to take over the helm.
How is it that a university can sign a coach and hire him, and when they fire him, they owe him $50 million? Now, I know that, that's one of the, well, you can't feel too sorry for him. You're going, who signed that contract?
And this is commonplace in the market.
Because
contracts need to be structured better, I think more favorably on behalf of those institutions, or whether the team, whoever's doing it. I think, you're doing yourself a disservice just by giving away money to a guy that you're no longer desiring in your program, that he's just going to go sit on the couch. Now,
he'll be sitting on a desk on some network here in the next year or so.
Yeah. And now in some cases, what happens if that coach is able to, or she is able to get another job someplace else, there's an offset of what they actually owe him. And that's fair enough too.
It used to be where you would, if you would let go, you got next year's base salary and a percentage of the other things that, the TV and radio show, all the other outside items, but you got your base salary for next year and a piece of the action, but not the whole piece. And then they moved on. Now it's like, as you mentioned, he might sit at home and put that money in the bank before he goes somewhere else. But it amazes me how you can sign off on something like that, knowing that it never ends well. I mean, you show me Nick Saban was one of the few guys who walked away on his terms. Everybody else eventually gets fired. And so it's going to end that way. So you have to be able to protect yourself. But the university's got to step up and say, hey, look, we don't need this dead money, especially in the era of NIL and everything else. You're trying to find every nickel you can find to vote to the athletic department. That's a head scratcher.
No doubt. And that $49 million, you can tell me you can't use that to pay your other student athletes across the board. In Mizzou's case, they've got roughly around 550 student athletes. You're going to tell me that $49 million wouldn't?
It would go well. It would go extremely well.
And so I think in the future, those that are negotiating with new hires must take that into account. And the players' representatives, these agents, are going to have to understand that also, because that money, at the point, it's only going to go so far.
Yeah, I agree.
And if unless TV contracts start drying up, or if they start to dry up, and who knows where that's going to go, but you've got to be able to, distribute your particular wealth in your program in a more efficient way than just paying a coach who's not even going to be there anymore.
I think the TV contracts will continue to grow. And the reason being, networks have come to the realization that they can control their financial programming on Saturday night. Instead of having this sitcom or that show where the production costs, or an action show, the production costs are always going to increase. How much you pay for the rights for football, and you can build around that. And you show me a network that doesn't try and find a primetime game on a Saturday night, I'll show you a network that won't be in business long.
Right now. You're right. And with what they're doing now, and I think it's smart in some ways, they will flex a game or a time slot, to get a more favorable matchup on the screens that people can see, as opposed to doing it the old way, where this is who we got slotted and that's the game that we're going to watch. So,
and they took a page from the NFL with Sunday Night Football. Those final games of the regular season, they can pick and choose the games that are going to have a meaning. And I think we're seeing it now with college football. And I don't have a problem with that. I think if I'm going to turn the TV on Saturday night, I'm looking for a good game, not just a game you put on the schedule back in June, and and now we feel like it's a dud. I mean, there's too many good games, and with NBC's doing it, CBS is doing it, obviously ESPN and ABC, they've all found this to be a very manageable situation for them, where they don't have to worry about anything else but just turning the game on.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think now you're going to see, especially in college football, this time of year, you're at the midway point. The interest level is going to be increased because the college football playoff polls are probably going to be out soon. I'm not sure exactly the day that they will debut, but more attention is going to be placed on these games, that people want to see these marquee matchups because they want to get a glimpse of
What this
who
looks
might
like.
be
Yeah.
in.
So who is good right now? Because I watch games and you say, am I watching the team or am I watching the name of the team? And I know Ohio State's the number one team allegedly. I don't know how good they are. There were teams that we thought at the beginning of the year that were going to be good who continued to sink. And I start with Texas. Everybody thought Texas, here we come. And they've been okay, but I don't think they have garnered the national attention that they thought they were going to get. So for me, I'm still kind of in a holding pattern on who actually is good, because now we're in conference play. So you got to play teams that, and I'll give you a good example. Oregon thought they were pretty good
until
Indiana showed up. And I was one of those who was I wouldn't say a doubter of Indiana. I just wasn't used to Indiana being in the conversation.
Show me.
Yeah. And they have.
Yeah. Look, Kurt Signetti, he's probably going to be on the list of preferred coaches for a number of programs, maybe starting at Penn State.
So here's a question, and I'm glad you brought that up, because they talk about Matt Rule being in that conversation at Nebraska. And now Matt Rule has a good run when he was in college. The NFL didn't work for him, and Nebraska's been okay.
But it's taken a while.
Yeah. And so here's a question. What makes Penn State attractive? It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
It's hard to recruit. They've had success, obviously, but I don't know, what makes that school so attractive. For instance, everybody talks about Eli Drinkwitz. Oh, they're going to go after him. Well, why? I mean, what makes that program so attractive right now? What championship have they won? I mean, I know they put 100,000 people in the stadium, but I just feel like sometimes we get caught up in the fact that they would, of course, want him. But you look around the country, there's some programs, Howard, that these universities have stepped up and said, hey, we want you here and we're going to keep you here. And those other programs we can compete with, especially if you're in the SEC.
I agree. And if you want to compare Signetti and Drinkwitz from the standpoint of, two Midwestern programs that for a number of years really weren't good. And it's probably safe to say that Indiana was worse than Missouri.
Yeah. They couldn't wait for basketball season to start. And then they realized they weren't very good at basketball, and they couldn't wait for spring ball to start.
Exactly. But what I say is that their fan bases are so energized. They're so happy with the programs. In Missouri's case, the possibility of winning double-digit games for 3 consecutive years has never been done. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And it's showing up because people are in the seats. They've sold out, 15 straight, or had won 15 straight before they lose to Alabama. And again, it's one loss. Alabama lost to Florida State. They've went on a tear, and they've won 5 straight. Same could happen with Missouri. You had a blip. You lost a tough game at home. You got so much to play for. You could reel off 6 straight games. I mean, it's doable. I don't care what anyone says. You got to play these games. No one's going to put it on in the win column.
You got to go get it.
That's right.
But you said something after the game Saturday. That Missouri is still in this thing, because I don't think there's a dominant team in the SEC. I mean, they're all good, but we don't have the powerhouse of Georgia like we've seen the last couple of years. We don't have the roll tide, when they were just, the momentum was like, let's just hold on to some grass and hopefully we won't get crushed. Ole Miss is a program because Lane Kiffin always keeps the pot stirred, but nobody has just jumped out and said, yeah, we're the badasses of the SEC. So everybody's in play, in my opinion.
Well, at the end of October, we'll probably know a lot better if there's going to be a more dominant team, or if it's going to be like the old black and blue division in the NFC Central.
Yeah.
We had the Vikings, the Bears, the Lions, and
Packers.
The Packers were just beating up on each other.
And we're starting to see that again.
I
mean, Detroit is kind of like the cream of the division. But, you can't take Chicago for granted anymore. No. Green Bay is pushing people around. Minnesota's pretty good. You're right. I think we're coming back to that, and now we're seeing it in the SEC, which is good for football, I think.
Yeah. But I'm going to go back to that point I was saying with Missouri and Indiana. The pressure to win at those 2 institutions is nothing like it is at Florida. at Georgia, at Clemson, at Penn State. It's just not there. And so if you've built a comfortable life in that particular city, in this case, in Missouri, it's Columbia, or in Indiana, it's Bloomington. Fans love you. No one's, sending you death threats.
No
because you
moving
didn't-
vans in front of your house.
Yeah.
Your wife can still go to the grocery store. Yeah.
Right. They don't even recognize
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Right. Why is it just ego? I mean, the money, they're already making insane money anyway, 8, 9, 10,
Yeah.
11, $12 million. How much more money do you need? Is the pressure that you will then take on at any of those institutions worth the comfort that you have now? Plus, you're making a tremendous salary. It's a lot, it's a lot easier living in the Midwest. It's a lot cheaper cost of living than in LA or in some of these other places. So I think long-term, big picture have to come into play. At least they would for me. It's not, my ego's not that big that I gotta leave this program and I'm going to take on the challenge of winning at a program like Florida just because I need to show them that I can do it. You can do the same thing at Missouri. If you build it, you know the rest.
They will come.
Yes.
All right. Before we get out of here, one more thing. You played in an era and you were coached in an era where social media didn't have an impact. There was no such thing.
Thankfully.
Now you broadcast in an era and you see the game up close. I wonder what this would look like 30 years ago with Tom Landry and some other coaches, because now every time you hear coaches talking at a press conference, there's something that they are addressing that's been on social media, whether they're beating up the quarterback or a play call, or you name it. And it's having such an impact that now it's now grab coaches where they have to be cognizant of it, because it's easy to say, yeah, you don't need to read that stuff or you don't need to watch that. But maybe you don't, but somebody else is telling you. I mean, we've seen it before, and I don't know where this is going, but I think you're seeing coaches when you're in a good situation. Nick is a great example. Nick saw the NIL and the portal and social media coming. He had enough money where he didn't need it anymore. He can go sit on the desk on Saturdays at ESPN and have more fun than dealing with the questions and the posts that are now on social media. Where do you think we're going with this? Because it's here. The gorilla is in the room. And I don't know how coaches are going to address this henceforward.
Every year in football, especially college football, something new is unveiled.
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, did we really think that the transfer portal would be a thing? Name, image, and likeness, and paying players would be a thing? No one would have necessarily predicted that. Yet here we are. And I think the best way that the people that are involved can deal with it is they've got to be able to figure out how to stay ahead of it. Now you got to add sports gambling.
And now we're going to let college students bet games, athletes bet games that they're not playing in.
Yeah. Yeah. And if, with prop bets or whatever the case may be, if some fan is put a bet on a particular player and he does something like drop a pass, those fans are now crucifying these players on social media. The players see it, or if they don't see it directly,
somebody's
one of
telling
their friends is telling them, and now they go and look, and then now it starts to get into their psyche. How you manage those things, it's beyond me. I don't know that I want to be a part of that type of administration now. It's hard. And like with Missouri, I know that all of the student athletes, their phones have been registered with the athletic department and some other organizations, so they're monitored. If some kid wants to place a bet with their phone, it's going to be clocked, and they'll know pretty much right away. Now you got the
burner business.
Burner phones.
Burner business is about to boom right now.
This is true, but I think even that industry, there are going to be more features put into place to even track how those things are.
The trends,
being done.
I agree. The other thing as we close, so I now as a college student can bet on the sport I'm not playing in. But here's the deal. If I'm losing on the other sport and somebody wants to take me off the hook, if I do something in my own sport to help a team cover or whatever, or going in the other direction, I just think it opens up something. And listen, if you want to gamble, that's fine. I have no problem with it. But I just think when you open this up to some people who aren't really prepared to deal with it, I think that's a real challenge. And I think you talk about getting out in front. When you come to my university, we're going to have a seminar about these things where you're not going to walk into this blind, and we're here to help, and we're here to prepare you on what's going to happen, because it's going to happen.
Well, it's the education piece. It has to be huge, but it can't be a one-time thing.
You got to keep pounding and pounding and pounding.
This has to be done on a regular basis to continue to remind. It's like your child. You know, how many times you tell your child to clean their room? It's probably going to be more than once.
Exactly. The only time you only tell them one time is don't put your hand on that stove.
That's right.
You only have to tell them one. Yeah,
because when you get burned, it's going to be really, really hot. You're right.
He's Howard Richards. I'm Mike Claiborne. We thank you for tuning in. We call it Huddle Up with Howard. We look forward to talking to you in the very near future. A lot of football going on this weekend. Hopefully your team turns out on top.